42 advanced aircraft, $29 billion. And we're looking at an operation that is still very much unfolding. Welcome to this explainer, where we're going to impartially break down a brand new report detailing the multi-layered impacts of Operation Epic Fury. That's the current military campaign directed against Iran. Our goal today, we want to cut right through the noise. We're going to look directly at the data, the hardware, and the staggering numbers defining this conflict. So let's build a clear picture of exactly what's happening on the ground and in the air based on the absolute latest assessments. To really wrap our heads around the sheer scale of this campaign since it kicked off on February 28th, we've got to start with one staggering baseline figure, and that is 42. According to the report, this is the number of advanced U.S. aircraft and drones that have either been lost or damaged since operations began. And guys, this isn't just a statistic. This represents some of America's most advanced, most expensive military assets taking hits in a really condensed time frame. To make sense of all this dense data, we're structuring today's explainer around 5 key areas. First, Operation Epic Fury's toll. Then, the hardware losses, the financial burden, shifting public opinion, and finally, the road ahead. Let's dive right into Section 1, Operation Epic Fury's toll. As we know, Operation Epic Fury was officially launched on February 28th, targeting Iran. Now, the crucial context here is that because military operations in the region are still highly active, the report explicitly notes that the final tally of losses could totally change. Some details, understandably, are still classified, and battlefield assessments are constantly ongoing. What you really need to keep in mind is that early casualty and loss reports in modern conflicts are notoriously conservative because of the fog of war. So the final impact might actually be even more severe than what these initial numbers suggest. The numbers we're unpacking today represent the absolute clearest picture we have right now, but it's a picture that's still developing. Moving on to Section 2, the hardware losses. Let's get specific about those 42 impacted military assets to see exactly where the heaviest blows landed. The data actually breaks down into 3 distinct operational categories. First up, the frontline fighters. The report lists 4 F-15E Strike Eagles, 1 incredibly advanced F-35A stealth fighter, and an A-10 Thunderbolt II. But what's arguably even more critical is the hit to the vital support network. We're talking 1 E-3 Sentry radar plane, 2 MC-30J special ops planes, a rescue helicopter, and 7 KC-135 Stratotankers. Now, losing support assets like those mid-air refueling tankers, that creates massive logistical bottlenecks. It effectively grounds other fighters even if they don't have a scratch on them, severely limiting the operational range of the whole fleet. And then, there are the unmanned systems. This right here is where we see the true nature of this conflict's material toll. Out of the 42 assets, 17 were traditional piloted aircraft, while 25 were drones. That ratio, 17 manned to 25 drones, represents a profound paradigm shift in modern air combat. This is literally one of the first major engagements where unmanned losses so heavily outweigh traditional piloted jets. The vast majority of the damage wasn't to pilots sitting in cockpits, it was to the remote drone fleet, making up well over half of the total impacted assets. Let's dig into what that actually means for the tactics at play. Specifically, the U.S. lost or sustained damage to 24 MQ-9 Reaper drones. As a report points out, these are heavily relied upon for long-endurance surveillance and precision strikes over highly contested airspace. On top of that, an MQ-4C Triton was impacted. To put that into perspective for you, a single MQ-4C Triton is this high-altitude marvel used for strategic reconnaissance, and it costs well over $100 million. These aren't just disposable remote-controlled toys. They are massive, highly sophisticated strategic assets. Seeing this sheer volume of unmanned vehicles taking damage gives us a really clear window into just how heavily reliant operations over Iranian airspace have become on drone technology. All right, let's turn to Section 3, the financial burden. Because, as you can imagine, military hardware of this caliber absolutely does not come cheap. Lawmakers from both sides of the aisle are actively pressing the Pentagon for answers right now, because the estimated cost of U.S. operations in Iran has surged to an incredible $29 billion. And $29 billion isn't just some abstract number on a spreadsheet. That is equivalent to the entire annual operating budget of several major U.S. federal agencies combined, all spent in just a matter of weeks. The cost of fixing or flat-out replacing these frontline assets is rapidly becoming a massive burden on the broader defense budget, and reportedly that figure is still climbing. Which brings us to the administration's stated rationale. While facing intense questioning from lawmakers about this massive financial burden and what the exit strategy might even look like, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth firmly defended the administration's approach. When they pressed him on the skyrocketing costs, he pointed directly to the overarching objective, stating emphatically, quote, Iran cannot be allowed to possess a nuclear weapon. During this questioning, he also pushed back on the financial criticisms, asserting that the current administration's economic team is managing the situation better than the previous administration managed inflation. So they are keeping the focus squarely on that geopolitical goal of nuclear deterrence, regardless of the price tag.
That takes us to Section 4, Shifting Public Opinion. Let's take a look at the data from the home front. According to a recent New York Times and Siena College poll, public opinion is shifting sharply against the campaign. Nearly 2 out of every 3 voters, that's 64%, now say it was the wrong decision for the United States to go to war with Iran. The public is clearly highly wary of the soaring costs, but even more so, they're wary of the prospect of sending another generation into combat, risking the life of another American boy or girl in a prolonged overseas conflict. That's a really significant majority of the electorate expressing active disapproval of this operation.
Furthermore, that exact same survey delivered a broader warning sign for the White House, placing President Trump's overall approval rating at just 37%. To understand why that matters so much, we have to look at historical context. Normally, wartime presidents see a rally round the flag effect, where public support actually surges during an active conflict. So seeing a sub 40% approval rating during a major military operation, that's a highly unusual and precarious political reality. It really indicates that the domestic political costs of Operation Epic Fury are compounding right alongside the military and financial ones. Finally, Section 5, the road ahead. The administration is now trapped in a very delicate balancing act. On one side, you have 42 lost advanced aircraft, a rapidly evaporating $29 billion, and plunging public support. But on the other side, you have the uncompromising goal of global nuclear deterrence, which Secretary Hegseth heavily emphasized as an absolute necessity for security. Which brings us to the ultimate question we really have to ask ourselves after reviewing this report. Will this staggering price tag force Washington to alter its strategy in West Asia, or will the commitment to deterrence completely override the financial and political fallout? Ultimately, is the price of intervention higher than the cost of doing nothing? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep asking the hard questions, and I'll see you next time.